So, fantastic. So as I'm going to share, what's going to happen is when I share is what's going to happen when I share. I may not see you, so I may miss some of those questions. So please bear with me if I missed any of the questions. I will come back to those questions and I'll make sure we handle some of those questions as we go through. So I'll just make sure that we're not covering the screen or I'm not doing that myself. Okay, so hopefully can you all see? Can you tell me if you can see?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Good to go.
Perfect. So yeah, so today these sessions are bi-weekly. My name is Bally Binning, for those of you who've not met me before, based in the UK. And so I may ask Peter, if I can ask you to mute yourself, that'd be great, because I think I can hear some background. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. So what we're going to be doing is, like I said, check. It's a bit of an AI pulse check. On the leaderboard, there are some high performing tools out there. Some of you may be keeping an eye on that, maybe you're not, but I'm going to do a bit of a dive into where the space is, and we'll sort of I'll ask questions about which ones you're using. So there's kind of we've got that opportunity to share. So yeah, AI is evolving. You're seeing plethora of tools out there. Some of them it's mind blowing and do some phenomenal things. And we're just going to, like I said, do a bit of a blitz. And it's time to take action, really. If you're not using the tools, you're really missing out because the things that you're able to do, you can pick one tool. That's going to be one of the challenges I'm going to actually say, like pick one tool that you'll kind of go away and start using. So it is going to be insight, hopefully real applications, because that's what I want. Okay, so which are the LLM models? When we think of LLMs, though, I know Richard, sort of you've been in this area for so long, but for those large language models that are out there, we think of it as text. We're seeing this a lot more. So, so some of the terminology, if it don't worry. Hi, Chris. How you doing? Don't worry if it's new. I'll kind of explain it, and this is how I felt when I started a few years back. I was like, "What language is this? Like, what are they telling me?" Like, so the kind of on the so I'll say there's a plethora of models. Some of them do better in some of the things that we're going to see today, right? So these are kind of like the top performing ones that are coming through. Gemini 2.5 is a pro version. It's if you haven't tested Gemini's version, do test it out. Even if you just test it, even if you say I'm not going to stick with it, give it a go. It really leads in that kind of chatbot boot, if I say, arena because it retains a lot of the context. We have something called CAG, and I'll explain a little bit in the next slide what CAG is because it's and I'll say a little bit more as we come on to how these catches work because it's kind of using the information. I'll come on to that. Grok, if some of you it wasn't doing so well until recently, but it's doing phenomenal. Some of you will have seen this already. So certainly in the X kind of space, if you're kind of using X or the old Twitter, then really good if you're kind of in that space using Grok 3.3. And some of you may not want to go to Grok, but it is good one to test out, right? Elon Musk's Grok, right? We've got Claude Sonnet is the 3.7, one of the top performing for coding and really good for writing. So if you are, so for those some of you writers here, definitely give that one a go. I use it for writing if I've gone and I'm looking at various tools. This one is kind of my place to go for writing. I know some of you are coming in the chat saying I'll come on to the chat in a moment. And then, of course, we're not going to miss out GPTs because we'll talk about that environment. And some of you who've been with me have been using and created your GPTs. I'd encourage you to still use those because we'll come on to the end and we'll share. And I'll share a couple of GPTs with you as well today for being live in this call. and you can test them out. So the newer version is the 4.5, and there's the GPT-4. Now, in that environment, you're probably thinking, well, what does that mean? So often with the 4, I mean, the 4 is really like you'll see it's doing really well. I mean, it's come a long way, and in terms of stability, it's kind of there, I feel. If you haven't tested 4.5, then do so. And like I said, I'm giving a bit of an overview today. We can dive into some of these tools later on. So, what do we mean by innovation here, where we talk about catch, the CAG acronym, which is catch assisted generative, right? So, it's like the game-changing idea when we think of documents, assisted generative, sorry. When we think of documents, we can upload various documents, but what it does is this question a lot of people have about hallucination. So when I go into a tool, so if you haven't noticed this, that if you've been using GPT or any other kind of platform model, you might find that there's some inaccuracies that are happening as you're going along, right? So there's this thing called noise to ratio, which one of my mentors, Lou Adalo, David is familiar with, right? Lou, work very closely with him. This noise to ratio is like, how much noise is there? And we see that the results it's almost like it's losing its the kind of the question or the prompt you started with, and somehow it's becoming diluted in the kind of thread. But what with Gemini's version, what's really good is it's more efficient. In other words, it's also more economical, and it's in terms of processing, it kind of knows that conversation. It's a bit like it understands the conversation we had without having to then kind of remind it constantly, and it's really kind of a useful thing to kind of bear in mind. So when we're thinking of like so what's happening at the moment is we've got all these various tools out there, and they perform really good at some of the things, but they don't do all of the things right well. So what a lot of people kind of behind the scenes, and I'm sure Richard's doing some of this as well, I'm sure he's done quite a lot of this, in fact, is they are what we call tech stacking and experimenting with integrations, right? So they're using these tools, and what they're doing is certainly with VS Code and Claude 3.7, they are able to then transcribe YouTube videos, and that happens behind the scenes. Basically, you kind of connect these apps, right? So if you're able to do that, there is a process involved. I know Ivan and I, who's on the call today, we've spoken about make.com. Um, so make.com is a bit like the kind of the glue, if you like. It brings the various apps. And if we're thinking of like connecting various apps in our flow, so I'll give you an example. So if I'm using GPT, I'd use an API key, and then it connects to another app or another model, then it talks to that, it triggers, and then it talks to another one. So if you haven't checked out make.com, do have a look at it. They do have lots of tutorials. They have make.com Academy, and lots of kind of they go through it step by step. So it's worth checking out if you're looking to have multi-step AI workflows, and that's what you're going to be doing, because it's something I've been working with at the moment, and there are things that work well now. Make.com. So if you're like, I would also be like, I'm just going to say one thing, like, um, David, I think for you, when we're using these tools, sometimes it takes a while to learn this. So if we have someone that does that with us, then, that might be the thing to do. If you're a web developer, if you're someone like Richard's created quite a lot of processes, I think, Cressida, if you're going to be doing this as an agency, it's definitely worth looking into. And David, if you're looking at a workflow, and maybe if you can try a simple workflow, it's worth doing. It's worth connecting. Okay, so think about your work process, and people often say, I actually don't know what my work process looks like. Well, it's no good going there until you know what your work process looks like, because
Yeah.
it's a bit like, saying I want to go and get this, but you just haven't got that, like those steps in place. So just be careful how you go about doing this. It's great. It's fun to kind of dabble and play with these tools, but it can consume a lot of hours. And if you're a business owner and you want to give that to someone else, it might be the thing to give to a developer or someone who's good at doing this. Or you say, you know what, I want to learn this for my own business because then it will save cost it will save me time. So it's good to become familiar, even if you're giving that work over across to someone in terms of the automation, the multi-step. You may not even have that many steps. You can try two, and that's what I've been doing, just testing two. Um, I've been testing using GPT, connecting it to my calendar. It is active, but there were a few hiccups, like it wouldn't do certain things, and I had to look at the values point, and then it gets a little bit technical. So if you're someone who it's clunky, then I would say have someone that works with you, and just be careful with that because it can take hours and hours and hours, right? So just be careful, but it's worth giving it a go. If you can get that to work, it'll be amazing because it's such a time saver. Do you know what I mean? If you've got, like, especially if you're creating social media content, I can go into this actually. I can definitely do a session on make.com as I'm testing it out. And maybe even Richard's done much more of this himself. I don't know, Peter, if you've used this your end, make.com, or maybe no.
I haven't actually used it. I've had some experience of people sending me stuff for websites they generated with AI, and I've got to say I've had to rewrite every one because they very often the content is a bit lame, it's a bit clunky. It focuses on one area when there might have been 10 things. I've just been doing some walking trails, and the AI would focus on one person or one thing on the trail, and there's about 10 things to see. So I'm just trying to find out what's better than what I'm being given at the moment.
Ah, okay, okay. So that's people send is that con so it sounds like it's text people are sending, right? People are sending over
Yeah,
that.
they're generating content for these walking trails. They create a route, say of Worcester,
Yeah.
and they'll focus on one thing, and they'll miss out. Worcester's so rich in culture and heritage and everything, and it's a bit blinkered the AI I get. I have to go back and research it myself.
Yeah, okay. So yeah,
So I'm interested to see which of these models might be worth me trying to dip into, get to know, and then use it with clients.
absolutely, yes. And this could come later on once you've decided on which tool you're going with. So it's not ready to the level that you want to kind of say it's the tool I want to connect with another app. You wouldn't, it's not quite there. So I was a little bit cautious of that. I was thinking, if it's not doing the thing I want it to do, am I going to trust it to create my social media content because it still hasn't been prompted and trained? Once you've got that nailed, then it makes it easier then to kind of connect it and then say, you know what, it does a good job. It's kind of ready to go. And the results, the outputs that land in my inbox, my Gmail account, so you can connect it with your Gmail, it kind of has all that ready without you having to go back and check. So it's done the initial step. So we have to make sure we're using the right tool to do the thing. If you haven't tested Perplexity, I would definitely say use Perplexity AI for research is really good. We don't cover it here, but it's a really good one for kind of the research component in the AI space, Perplexity.
Thanks, Malik. Can I just ask one more question and just leave it there? The other thing which I've had a lot, I do websites for councils, local councils,
Yeah,
and they do surveys like for neighbourhood plans, and they
yeah.
end up with hundreds of online entries, and they
Mhm.
want them analysed. And I don't know if you're going to suggest anything that might be good to try and help me with that.
Ah, yeah. Okay. So that would be, so what I'll do is I'll mention, let me come to David and then I'll mention
Oh,
Pinecone because this might be the thing to go with. David, you had a question or comment?
good morning. Thank you for hosting this, Bally. I have desperate need for this. What I was going to ask, and maybe you're going to cover it today, is how do you actually create AI agents?
Ah, okay. Create a
So,
agents.
so
Okay.
you can prompt them, and they can use their generative capacity to
Yeah.
basically build, a functioning vehicle, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So the AI
Yeah.
agents, and actually Richard's done something as well with his Delphi AI. I've been communicating with you in your Delphi AI space, Richard. Which
Oh, get myself in trouble. Yeah, that's a great question, David, because I did a quick look up on ChatGPT to compare Make to um, another platform that you all use, Zapier,
yeah.
and I like what I'm reading about Make.com, and it's more customizable, possibly a little bit easier, user friendly than Zapier, more flexible because Zapier can be kind of challenging. But yeah, I like where David's going with this whole notion of agents. I just wrote a custom GPT that essentially can walk somebody through, either someone like myself who has a technical background or even the customer, to actually describe the workflow that they want to build for agent or agents, and then just cycle them through a series of data collection, workflow steps, API points, integration points, and all of that from soup to nuts that ultimately produce it. I'm not the person to write the agents at this point, but it can produce a scope of work that could be handed off to a developer in that space where they can actually build it out. And it gives me a resource summary. It gives me the requirements of what kind of resource is necessary and an estimate, based on a time and materials kind of scenario. So I think I agree with David. That's more likely the direction going with a client because agents are problem solvers. And I know you talked about this in detail.
Yeah, it's going to be the way forward. Agents and this space with agentic kind of, we're not quite there with that. But if you get someone to kind of take it to the next level where you've got agents and the whole kind of cloning of ourselves is the thing that we're seeing. Like if I have a clone doing this work for me, what am I going, like, okay, it's great. Because one thing I found with yours, Richard, that chat in the Delphi AI was very, I mean, I was, I don't, you would have seen those conversations certainly. So it's taking us, so as I said, today is a bit of an overview of where things are going. And of course, by no means is this exhaust. This isn't everything like Zapier, for example, like you said, or Zapier. It depends on how you want to pronounce it. It's there. It's knowing that flow. David, did you want to add something else?
Yeah, well, I think that's the lowest hanging fruit for most of us in terms of approaching the market for monetizing, our skills or
Mm.
programs is to get agents that are going to work for our clients and perform the workflows, design them and accomplish them, if you will.
Yeah.
So I see that is where the gold mine
Mm.
is in creating those agents. But what I'm wondering is if if what you're doing, Valley, is going to go there, or um, what's the nature of what we're going to do with this course, if you will?
Yeah, so okay, that's a really good question. With the bi-weekly, what I do is I go away and I do the kind of learning. I go and test these things out and I bring them. And what I tend to do is I simplify what's out there. So if you want like somebody to build something, then definitely I would then be able to suggest people that are able to do that. So that space is huge. Like you're absolutely right. So with me in this space, I'm about bringing people together. I got involved in this because I could see that there was, there's so much out there, and it's getting confusing, right? It's so confusing. And so, as Richard was saying, if you can then give something to someone and have an understanding yourself, because people will be, say, we're going to be doing this thing. If you have an understanding of giving a project to someone, you've got to know as leaders who you're giving that to. And so that's kind of where I'm bringing this into the space of like how people are then using it. And if people want to go into this, or they want connections with programmers, or they want to build their team, if they've got a number of people kind of bring, then yeah, those contacts are there for sure.
Okay. I'm not sure. Well, do you have a Facebook group or something that's an auxiliary add-on to what you're doing here, where we can interact in a little more conversant environment?
Sure.
Or
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's a really good question. What I can do is I can create a WhatsApp group rather than a Facebook. Not everybody's
oh,
on Facebook, or maybe it's not a preferred choice, but for some they like really love Facebook. But yeah, we can do that definitely with questions or shares they may have. We can definitely set that up. So happy to do that. If you want that, then please just put your number in there. Then we can create a WhatsApp. It's for some
okay.
people, yeah. Then I can share resources if things come up, like a GPT, or Richard's got something, or someone saying this is an issue I've had, because I'm connected with about 4 other AI communities worldwide. So we can definitely share. We can definitely learn from each other, because this
Uh,
space, like I said, yeah. But you're absolutely
so
right.
we
Yeah.
do we need the API to connect to those other groups? No, I'm playing. I'm playing.
Yeah, it's a great question about agents. Is the way forward, and there's space there, and there are people going to be a lot kind of ahead of the curve that they will be doing this
Yeah.
stuff, which is great. I
And there's low code, no code options out there already to get started. So, but again, no light limitations.
yeah.
uh, the primary thing is really understanding again what the outcome of the agent is, and really honing in on that. The technical aspects, I would leave someone who's versed in that. But as a product project manager, my job is to definitively collect the requirements and identify what the scope of work is.
Mm. And it's like,
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
it's really good discussion, because it's always about what is it that you want to have? What's the kind of outcome we're looking for? Any project, whether it's an AI, whether it's building like for Peter with the trail, what is it that we want? And if it's not doing the thing, we're noticing it as experts. And so my mentor talks about knowledge workers, because we are experts in our field. We can stay in lane, but we still need to we need to know what's going on. Let's not like go into looking at every single tool. That's not the kind of thing, because I mean, even developers don't know how many, like, people don't know how many AI tools there are at the moment. So let's stay with the ones that we're looking at. So the other one at the
thank
moment,
you.
yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, David, and more than welcome to kind of share. Um, you know, there are other stuff as well we've been doing that's kind of supporting people when they're in that. One of the environments which I'm really getting everyone to think about is the GPT environment. I mean, that for me, the OpenAI GPT environment is still a place I go to daily, like 5 times, 6 times a day, even more sometimes. And I'll say how I use those GPTs for my workflow. AI for visuals and branding. You will have seen some cartoon avatars. You will have seen infographics already, branding materials, style guides, and also room design. So a lot of this is your AI, AI, that space, you're able to do that. You're able to create that in this space, if you've not tested it. So, you'll find that most people will have gone into some of this, but not to, you know, great depth, perhaps. Recommended content workflow. These are some of the things that came about as I was putting this together, thinking about if we're looking at what tool am I doing for the thing that I want it to do. So Peter's question, one of them was about lots of text. I find Gemini 2.5 can really sift through and summarize. So I find that to be really helpful. Um, I'm paying for Gemini, but I'm paying for this Studio where it's got like developer stuff. But the Gemini, this you know, a lot of these are free, by the way. A lot of these, the basic kind of entry to some of the tools we're talking about is to, that's why I've kind of mentioned them, is you can get the free version as a test. I'll say which ones you pay for. Some of you will have had experience and perhaps even subscribe to those. And or many of the tools, right? But and then you want to go into Claude for drafting and refining, I found. You know, certainly when I'm writing and finding kind of or fleshing ideas, because I'm thinking I'm creating ideas, I may be using that. Well-toned content, which is, you know, the Claude. So I'm missing the questions, but I promise to come back to them. And GPT is a iterative and a collaborator, right? Because what I also have done, and a lot of people who are here have got their own GPTs. So this is where I find the power in having using the GPT environment, is to have the GPTs created. And that's where I find really helpful, because you're able to evoke the GPT in the conversation. And I'm sure this is what Richard or perhaps David, you will have created. If you haven't, you've got your own GPTs, or you've created you know, your own bespoke GPTs, perhaps for writing. I've got a couple, like I said, I'll share with you. You can test them out, and maybe even Richard's including something. And so, and then if you want to then, and within that environment, you may use something called Canvas, perhaps, and then you can obviously take it to Word, because, you know, depending on your workflow, but you may actually decide to use it in Polish and Present in Gamma. These slides were created in Gamma, right? And so it creates a polished presentation once you've got that kind of flow. And this workflow can be connected with something like make.com. So if I was to have a document, I can run it through Gemini, I could refine it through Claude, I can iterate through GPT, I could present through Gamma, and I could even get it to 11 Labs if I wanted to. And 11 Labs is the voice. So for those of you who haven't tested out 11 Labs, I know Hazel's not here, but Hazel and I spoke about this, who's an author. We spoke about 11 Labs, and I used it about more than 2 years ago when it was new, and it did a pretty good job then, but it's doing a phenomenal job now if you haven't tried 11 Labs. Like I said, you could test these out, or you may say, I'm not ready to test this out. But you'll find you can, that's the voice cloning. You can voice clone, you can record, and then it uploads the voice, and then you can use it. I've created presentations, that type of thing. David, you wanted to ask something else?
Yeah, I just forgot to lower my hand. I'm listening.
Oh, okay. No worries. Okay, cool. Yeah, so what I want everyone to be doing, and I will promise I'll come on to those questions, is to think of a tool that, you know, consider for some of you, all in different sort of spaces using these tools. Some of you have used a lot of them, perhaps even most of these here. For some of you, perhaps are new to this and haven't used any of the tools out there at the moment. You may, well, actually, if you, I'll be surprised if you haven't. You may not even be aware. Like WhatsApp has got Meta AI. It's flat, you know, if you haven't seen that, they're everywhere. AI is absolutely everywhere. But it's having these conversations. It's about becoming mindful about how we're using the thing that we're saying we're using, and what are we using it for? So I would say, you know, if you haven't tried it, pick one thing that you do daily. Perhaps start noting it down and see how you can then use AI in a way. So if it's using Chat GPT, what are some of those things that you can automate? So what is it that you can perhaps think about? Evaluate what that is. And you want to also track and keep record. Does it do a good job? Because Peter's been looking to see, actually, it's not doing a good job. Hence, I need to look at something else because it's missing the information. It hasn't got the research capabilities, or perhaps I'm not kind of getting into the tool that is good for research. So yeah, that's kind of like one of the things I would also say. Prompt management, and some of you will have used TypeMind or Raycast perhaps. So if you're looking at it reminds me a little bit of Notion, or like even where you're organizing and putting your prompts. Now, what you're going to find as you go into the AI space is you're using similar prompts. Prompts, again, for those of you who are probably thinking, I use prompts. Do I use prompts? So just the instructions you give the model and it performs the task you're wanting to do. And when you have a prompt, and I've done sort of different sessions actually on prompts for anybody that's interested, is where we've done layered prompts, or but if you found like what I call mega prompt, or prompts that do a really good job, you want to save it, because you don't want to go back to primary bases and start again with something that you've done. You want to kind of start collating those, because then you want to, the reason we're using AI tools, why we're using it, because we want to speed things up, right? We want to become not just efficient, but we want it to become effective. Okay, Richard.
Yeah, great point about prompt management. I have to check out either of those projects. In terms of if you have a prompt that you want to use over and over again, and you'll probably go into this, you may be better suited to convert that to a custom GPT where you can reuse that prompt and even create a series of instructions as follow-up prompts. This way you can repeat, and you can rinse and repeat, as they say, instead of having to start from scratch every time. But I'm sure Bally will go into that.
Yeah, 100%. Because yeah, one of the things, it's a bit like going back to the primary, starting from scratch again. It's time consuming, and this is where when you're new to this, you're always starting again. It's like, where do I go with this? Because, but keep those, organize those, and it's a great suggestion, Richard, that you say, yeah, if it's doing the thing that it's doing really well, you could create a GPT. And so for anyone that hasn't created a GPT, of course, we can speak away from this and then look at steps so that you're able to create your GPT, what's needed to do that, then I have it, right? And data retrieval, so easy for parsing. Parsing is just kind of other models understanding the language, or just the way it speaks to other models. So there's a kind of the great thing about being in space, you don't have to have all the years of experience, say someone like Richard has, that spent years in this space, because actually a lot of it we can do as kind of experts in our own field, right? So we can go in. And my passion through being a linguist and sort of looking at semantics and all this kind of space has really brought me into this, because it's like wow, like it is an amazing area. So look at the tools that you're going to be using. I can definitely put a tool worksheet out if that would help, so people can then have a list of tools, what does what. So it's a bit like, okay, this is the worksheet that kind of does the thing that, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, I want to create clone my voice, or I want to, okay, 11 Labs, or there's others, right? HeyGen for videos, or what's the other one, right? For she mentions, right? So Claude, or whatever it is. So I can definitely do that. So key takeaways, and I'm going to go into those questions, I promise. This space is about learning, and it is about experimenting. Start small. Start with something that you're saying, I'm going to test this out. And just have like a workflow strategy. That would be my suggestion. Even if it means I still handwrite things, like I write it down and think, what is it that I want to do with this? So I mean, sure, my quality is still there, because we're all going to be very average at using this. What's going to be the difference between the ones that are really good at using it is knowing how to use the model that it's good for, right? So I always say we can all cook, well, most of us can, right? but we want to get better at it, right? We want to become really good at this. We want to know, and we also want to then part and share that with other people. And we want to be in the space that we're able to talk about this and not kind of shy away from having these conversations. Hence the reason I really am kind of passionate about these bi-weekly sessions. So integration comes later. Test the tools out first. Give yourself maybe space to go, you know what, this is my testing time. I don't need to look at the other stuff yet. That's what happened when I got introduced to make.com about 10 months ago. I was like, I don't need to know this yet. It's okay. It's there. It's not going away. Let me start with this and get an understanding before I go to the next thing. New technology, and then model selection. Which ones am I going to use? What are their strengths? And this is something I will definitely put together for you as well. So yeah, let's connect. I have got a typo error there. I didn't mean to put an L and poor resources, but yeah. So please connect and reach out to me. Now I'm going to go to the questions. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so I'm going to put out some questions for you. Kathy's here. That's great. And Nicola's here too. So questions, you put a lot of questions there. Maybe you can raise your hand and I promise I'll go through some of those. And if you've got those, I'm happy to answer some of those questions there. But is there something blatant that was in there that I missed that? Ivan.
So for the uninitiated, here's a simple question. If I had to choose, say, 5 or 6 AIs to get my feet under the desk, for it to be beneficial to a person, what 5 or 6 would you suggest?
Okay, good question. Good question. I do have 5. I'm happy to share that. So my personal 5 would be for me. Number you're gonna know that I'm really like ChatGPT is kind of one of the ones I really go to, only because I've created like 37 GPTs now, and I have one tracks my progress daily, which I fed it the information that it feeds back to me on a daily basis. I talk to my GPT and we bounce ideas, and it's like, I also really like Minstra. I didn't mention that one. It's used for developers, but I find it's really good. Minstra AI, I can put it on the list. I use Claude for writing. Gemini, I do go to Gemini a lot, and I use Notebook LM, as you know, on a daily basis. It's one of my preferred ones. I do go to DeepSeek as well. I kind of go into some of those open AI spaces as well. And what's the other one I tend to use? I started using HeyGen, but paused my subscription again. Stop and start with HeyGen. It does a really good job. I'm still, it does a great job because you can actually create a video from a picture, right? And then you can clone your voice and it creates content. So those are some of my top ones. And I do like the egg. So I have a few, right? So I think I said more than 5 there, but those are my.
That's okay. It's just in this is like, I remember when I came to the UK for the first time, all I wanted to do was buy a loaf of bread. I walked into Tesco's and there was a whole bloody aisle of bread. Pick one. And so at the end of the day, you just reach out and you grab one, and then you get cozy with it, and that kind of sticks with you for a while. So kind of just trying to skip a few places where you can go chasing rabbits down foxholes and just stick with the basics for now.
100%, yeah. And I love Aldi's concept, not too many, right?
Yep, absolutely, yeah.
So keep it kind of a few that you have maybe 2 or 3 that you go into, and these are free. I use Claude. I've not subscribed to Claude. I had a bit of a rule because I went and tested all of them out like about 2 years ago. I had subscriptions, so many. But that's why then I wanted to also put a community like this together, because I also know it could be it can be really costly. So minimize your cost, pick one that's going to help them, in the thing you want it to do before you feel comfortable. Yeah, okay, this is the other thing I want. We didn't even touch on Microsoft Copilot. Some people may already be using that and have that access through their workplace. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that
It-
That's me. Thank you.
I hope
Yeah, I
that
was just going to say, can I just say on Copilot, I didn't ask you to do this, which is brilliant. When I've got a long email thread,
yeah.
it drops me a little summary at the top, and it's really useful. And it sort of it came with the browser, as it were. I didn't even have to set it up.
It's yeah. So you're finding it does the summary. And it does a pretty good job, right? Even Read AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other tools that we haven't mentioned is like when we're doing live conversations here. I also use ones for transcribing. I use something called Auto AI, which I found really helpful just through coaching calls, which I was transcribing. But Read AI, for example, does a great job in summarizing kind of from these live conversations. But you're right, Peter's right, with a lot of these tools does a pretty good job. And that's why we're all going to be quite average in like being able to something like, did he get all the notes? We still have to look at some of this stuff as like, was that really who said what? Because it may, make things up, right? So we still kind of as experts, but yeah.
Yeah, I would just jump in there. I sit in a Institute of Directors committee. Anyway, we were talking about something, and within Zoom, you have the Zoom AI as well, which summarize the call. It's actually pretty good. But as you say, you do have to check it because it took something out of context, and I should be in Ghana right now, okay, on a trade mission, which is not what we discussed or even said. So you don't just go, oh, click it, and it's absolutely true. Because I was reading it and I thought, oh, this is pretty good. And I went, no, that's not me. That's the other guy going. Just something to bear in mind.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's who said what? Yeah, it's like we can get into some of those conversations. Who said what in the meeting? Did we miss someone or someone's name? Was it them that said that? Did it actually pick their voice up? Was it that person or somebody else? You know, so those type of conversations can be quite interesting. But yeah, that's a good point with Copilot. I think Richard said here it's integrated. So yeah, it's absolutely the point, you know. Okay, any other questions? Thanks for that, Ivan. That's really helpful in terms of sharing and questions that you will have had. I'll make sure I capture those. David?
Well, I kind of feel like this has been extremely informative as putting a framework together that I can work with, and that's been phenomenal. What I feel at the moment is like this Niagara Falls of questions. And so I'm kind of blocking out what you're teaching because all these questions keep, advancing quickly. So I'm wondering, where are we going to get this list from you? Will you send it to us in WhatsApp or?
Yeah, I'll definitely. Yeah, absolutely. David, I don't think you're in my email list, are you? So maybe that's why I message you via WhatsApp. So that's what I'll make sure.
How in the world did that get overlooked?
I'll make sure you're in the email.
I'll put it,
sharing things.
I'll put it in there. Well,
okay. I'll make sure you get this. And yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I want to also share a couple of things too. So you're going to have questions, that people would have in the conversation. We've got 35 things came up. So I'm so sorry. I've missed so many questions and people have been putting things in there, and I promise to address those as I go through in an email, or I'll make sure I respond to some of those questions that have come up. So
well, the end game for me is all of these tools are absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is put some money in my bank account by helping others.
Yeah.
So, I mean, having, an encyclopedia of tools, each individually, if we investigate them, is going to take hours and hours and hours. What I'm trying to do is cut to the chase
Yeah.
and go directly from the need that a client has to satisfying that need and getting paid.
Yeah.
So, to be blunt, I mean, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So, what is the shortest distance to bridge that gap?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So
yeah.
100%. I mean, the thing is, we could be learning this stuff. We could start, if I look out, there's so many different tools. We don't want to go down that kind of avenue. We just want to make sure that this how we serving our clients. So when
Yes.
I'm going into my coaching, so let me give you an example so it helps. So with my coaching, for example, when I work one-on-one, I want to make sure that my notes are up to date, my conversations are confidential. They have everything there in the notes captured, and
Uh,
and also that I'm the actionable steps, right? It creates a report. I'm able to track client progress over 6 months. So I'm able to use AI tools in that way. Then I can also then use AI to promote my services. So if
yeah.
you're offering a service, how can you then how can you leverage the tool to support your clients, right? So that's how I would see it. How can these tools help me, in getting, becoming more efficient, effective, right? But what we don't want to be doing is spending more time, because that kind of refutes the purpose of having these AI tools out there. So pick
Exactly.
something that's going to help you and stay in lane where we're going, but use these to kind of enhance rather than take away, consume more time. Just reach out to someone who's been spending time doing this stuff, right? How do you do this? Like, I just need to get this thing done, right? That's the best. That's my definite, that's my suggestion. That helps.
So, I'm looking at, after we finish this call, what's the next step?
Yeah,
So, how do we interact? How do we share our knowledge base?
yeah,
Because what I feel is the most blue ocean available to us
yeah,
is helping other people
yeah,
overcome what we're dealing with,
yeah,
which is this massive influx of tools.
yeah.
And as a business owner, I don't have time to investigate that.
No,
So where I see tremendous potential to monetize is helping other businesses sort out what they're doing and how they can best and most effectively use AI to
absolutely,
increase their profits and decrease their expenses. So,
absolutely.
I mean, business 101, right?
Mm, mm, absolutely. So we can use it in a number of ways. If you said, this is how I'm supporting my clients, I'd say, okay, what is it that, let's consider a tool that's going to help, right? So
Exactly.
you could go in so if you're an agency like Cressida, I understand that you support clients in that space. You could actually then use that workflow and actually do it for them and charge them for that, right? That's the kind of approach that I would sort of say to Cressida, become familiar with it, use that as a way, monetize on this process, and they don't have to get in the weeds of learning that, because you will be ahead of a lot of the other agencies. So that would be my kind of, that's how I see it in terms
Yeah.
of writing or editing drafts. If you're a writer, we have Aith Hazel, who's a writer. She might be going through an outline, but her voice doesn't mean that, she's got an outline with the chapters. Okay, so suggestions,
Mhm.
ideation's great. Richard, you had a question?
Well, I just wanted to make a follow-up comment to David that, yeah, you could get overwhelmed by the choices that are out there. So you just want to winnow it down, which you were wise to kind of suggest. There's certain, I use a multimodal format, which means I may use ChatGPT to create an output, but then I prefer to bring it into Claude because Claude will write it more humanistically and so it's a better guide. But the other thing I wanted to say too, as you mentioned earlier, it's not just about the platform you use. It's about, and I hate to use the term prompt engineering because I've named my Chat GPT Vanessa. So I have conversations with Vanessa. She has a personality. I created it. But
Uh-huh.
when I have conversations with her, I find it it lends itself to not a prompting session, but more of an ongoing conversation. And ChatGPT, it's very critical for you to create the right custom instructions so that you teach it your writing style, what's important to you, your values, your mission statement, all of that is super important to put into ChatGPT and very trainable to a potential client. But the problem with, it's a super busy space. There's a lot of people out there hawking how to use Gen AI. But it's more important to not fixate on the products, but understand how to use prompting and conversations to get the desired outcome and just stay at it. Because, it's like having a conversation with a 5-year-old brilliant person, but they're not going to get everything right. And you have to persistently and sometimes even aggressively tell them, no, this is not what I'm looking for. Or this is what you gave me. This is what I want. How do I reorchestrate the prompt to give me my desired output? Take responsibility that it's not always a function of what the GPT spits back, but it's garbage in, garbage out. If your prompting is short, it has shortcomings, so will your output. You have to recognize that. And sometimes it's a humble pie experience because you have to say, okay, I messed up the prompt. Tell me how to fix it. Tell me how to get the desired outcome that I want. And then it'll actually spit back a prompt that is multi-layered. And then you say, oh my gosh, and it's going to consider other things you may have missed. And then you just say, yeah, please proceed with that prompt. Gee, that's great. And then you get closer to that desired output. So, it's kind of like Excel. Think about it, a chat session with ChatGPT. There's an awful lot of overhead that goes into getting you to the point where now it's able to understand through context and create the output that you really want. But just my 2 cents on this, and I know, Bally, you've talked about that too.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think it's a lot of people will take it as it gives the output, right? Just kind of, get it to do the work. It's like, I would say it can be lazy, right? So get it to do the job you're wanting to do, sort of, and more you train the model, or it has a memory. We've gone into this with some of the the sessions where we've created custom GPTs, get the instructions, and that's what I'm able to support people with if they're creating a customized GPT that really understands what's in the instruction in the kind of context, give it context, what's its purpose. I know Kathy's done this as well for her work. Some of you are writers in here. Some of you are using it for your services and offering it to clients. So yeah, the prompting is absolutely the thing, right? And test it out. Like those layer prompting definitely works. So, and save them when they do the thing that you want it to do, the outputs. So, it doesn't get it right always, and it still makes up some, makes mistakes. So I always say you're the chief editor at the end of the day, right? Of the stuff that goes out.
Oh, yeah. I have a custom GPT that actually somebody built for me that actually surveys for hallucinations, because there was a recent admission that came out that ChatGPT, I think 4.5, is still in the low 30s in terms of hallucination. So you definitely want to be careful of that. And it's usually in the context, the output of generalized statements. It loves doing that instead of, and you have to say, don't generalize, don't give me fictitious or generated outcome. Use only real, factual, true testimonials and use cases. And then it'll go back and clean it up. So that's one thing you need to be careful about is, the propensity for hallucinations. It means well, but it's not like computer software, where if computer software hits an edge case, it crashes. No, ChatGPT is designed, as well as all LLMs, to kind of fill the gaps with, fictitious created content if it doesn't have it.
Yeah, it's a really good sort of it comes with it. Some of it's already pre-trained with billions of parameters of stuff out there, but still those errors are going to happen. Hence the reason why we have customized GPTs. People are going, well, actually understands me, but does it really? So those are the things that I would say just to be cautious. I like Kathy's going to give her GPT a name too, right? So we'll have to share what those names would be, right? So there was a couple of years back when I went into this whole space, it felt very like masculine led. So there was Monica AI, which was I was one of probably the first few to get Monica AI. I was like, I'm going to get that AI because it's a female and I want to see what the difference is. So but yeah, so you could give it a name and give it kind of different functions, that type of thing too. I just want to say, I saw some of the comments. I promise I will look through those. I'm going to capture that too. And thank you for your shares. You've been okay, so you've been putting some of those links in there. And yeah, absolutely, David. We will create kind of a conversation. If you've got conversations, the key thing is who's your ideal client? Like anything, who's your ideal client? I can kind of share information on that. Who we speaking to? Who we directing the message to? We're not going to speak to everyone. What's the tool that's going to help us to get the message out, and how we're using these to, kind of impact and impact our message and get our message out. That's the key part, takeaway. Certainly hope that's, I know this has been a bit of an overarching kind of session today, but we meet every 2 weeks and we go through this conversation. There's going to be questions that will come through. It's here to stay, right? It's not going away. That's the thing, right? We're going to move with the wave, otherwise we will be left behind for sure. I know, Richard, you've been working in this space, so by all means, you did some writing in this space of AI. So feel free to share that with the others. We can put it in the WhatsApp for those people that join later, but it's always good. So thank you. I appreciate you for all your questions. For morning for you, David, afternoon already now for you, Richard, coming up to noon. I just want to say thank you. Hope you found it helpful, Peter, kind of coming on. I know it's a bit of an overarching kind of take on this because he's looking at different models. Like I said, it's not exhaustive list. It's just some of the ones that I found helpful, the ones that are performing well.
So if I could end this,
Yeah.
where's the calendar? If I can find it.
Oh, okay. So we meet every 2 weeks at the same time. So I will share that with you.
Every Wednesday?
Bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for hosting this.
You're welcome.
I needed this life preserver.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
Thank you for restoring my possible sanity.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome, David. And please feel free to reach out if you got questions, and stick to those goals and actually even get your GPT. Say, this is the income I'm going to be I'd like, and this is like, okay, this is who I'm serving, and get it to do some of that lifting for you. We could get it to do some heavy lifting, and then you may take or leave it. You may reject it. I always say it's a bit like a research paper. Like you may accept or reject the thing that it's offering. And look at testing that as ways of tracking, right?
Thank you, Bailey.
Yeah, you're welcome. So
Bailey, Bally.
Thank you very much. Yes, it was really useful.
Yeah. You're more than welcome. Liza, it's so good to see you back on. Yeah, great to see you.
Thank you, Danny.
You're welcome, Haya. You're welcome. Yeah, by all means, Haya, reach out to me. We'll look at something. We haven't gone into the tools today. It's been kind of more of a, like I said, a bit of a blitz as these are the things out there. This is what's happening. Just want to reiterate, please don't feel you have to try all of them. Your project is to try one of them, give it a go, see if it's doing the thing you want it to do. Is it saving time? Because that's what you want to do. Is it efficient? One, and is it effective? Two. The effective thing is the thing that we're going to be looking for because it might be efficient, but is it effective? So we won't go to the discussion of the differences because we've gone over time. I just want to say thank you so, so much for being here. I appreciate you all. Thank you. And any questions, please reach out. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sally.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Bally. Awesome session.
Bye.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Catch you next week. Speak soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye, Bally.
Bye now.
Thanks, Bally.
Thank you. See if I can pause this recording.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Richard, I paused it. I think I paused it. Let me double check. Don't know if I paused it. David, I'm happy to stay on. I'll get the chat because otherwise I'll miss it. Oh,